And then so I'll just start chattering for a few minutes, introduce you, and give people a chance to get on.
Cool.
All right. Facebook says we're live. And so I always take Facebook's word. And welcome.
Always.
I always, if you see it on Facebook, it's true, right? Just
Is
ask,
it?
just
I,
ask my mom. So, hey guys,
I don't know.
I'm Tony Kummer from ministrytochildren.com. We're the free website that's just trying to help you do children's ministry. And this is my friend Kim Botto from Crossroads Church in Greater Cincinnati, Ohio. And she's been a friend to me for several years. And she's also does some different speaking at conferences about kids and trauma. And I really respect Kim. She's part of a well-organized gospel-centered church that's kind of big. And so I think she knows some things. And she's also got some great personal stories about kids and trauma. And that's really been the heartbeat of her ministry for years. So I wanted to have her on and say, hey, let's talk about kids and trauma. So we're doing this live on Facebook right now. So if you're catching us live on Facebook, and let me make sure we're still working because I don't trust Facebook that much.
Yeah, we are. I'm looking.
So if you are on Facebook right now watching us, you can leave comments and we're going to interact with those comments throughout the talk. So if you guys are watching this now on Facebook, there's a handful of y'all. Say hello. Say hello, Kim. Welcome aboard. And you can start leaving questions and comments. And we're going to go for about 30 minutes. And so leave those comments. And if you catch this later, you can leave comments later. And we're going to jump back. And I'll be active for a couple days with this thread, answering those comments, or I'll maybe make Kim come back too, because Kim is a Facebooker, right?
You don't have to make me. I'll come back, Tony. And I
Okay.
just want to, that was such a nice intro. It has been fun to get to know you over the years, and your website and what you do for churches literally across the world is incredible. I mean, you're a guy in Indiana sitting in your laundry room right now.
Amen.
That is impacting kids and families across the world and providing them with free resources and places to ask questions. And I see people build community on your Facebook page. So well done, Tony.
Well, thank you. And I am just now probably about 5 years late to Facebook Live because it's been here and I just haven't messed with it because maybe I'm shy. I don't know. Maybe I'm too busy, but I think, you know what? Let's just connect a little bit. I went to the Children's Pastors Conference, so shout out to the International Network of Children's Ministry. I think I said that right, but they have their big Children's Pastors Conference every year in Florida, and that's when I last saw Kim, and we had a great talk one night just about ministry and life and everything. So, and I just, that whole conference to me is like, we need to be doing more of the face-to-face stuff for children's people. It's great encouragement to ministry. So shout out to them. And if you go to one conference this year, if they have it, I think they're going to have it. I think January is going to be safe.
It's scheduled. It's scheduled.
So if you go to conferences, definitely check that out. Put it in your church budget for next year, conference time and whatnot. So, all right,
and in addition to all that great stuff, resources and meeting people and being inspired, it's in Florida in January.
And it's at a beautiful place. It's like this little oasis hotel with this swimming pool. And I'm going to take my wife and daughter next year, and I'm just going to tell them to enjoy themselves. I tried to take them this year. It didn't work. But we were going to do a road trip and get down there and maybe meet the Disney princesses. Ariana's 9, so she still thinks the Disney princesses are real. So we're going to, we want to meet them before they turn not real. That's kind of my goal.
That's right.
Let me go ahead and share my screen just a second while people are coming on here. And I want to show you this quote. And let's start off with this quote because I think this is, behavior is the language of children who have lost their voice. And when Kim talks about trauma-informed children's ministry, there's a lot of different categories you can put kids into, but this is what we're talking about. We're talking about kids who, for whatever reason, they don't have their voice and they're acting out. So they're acting out at school, they're acting out at home, they're acting out in your children's ministry. These are the kids that I always feel like this is the heart of children's ministry, to look for those, and I don't want to assume anything, but I always consider this is the lost sheep. You know, Jesus said there's 99 sheep in the pen and there's one lost sheep. And what's his heart is to go after that child who's kind of on the edge, who's wandering away. So Kim, maybe you want to talk about this quote for a minute, and your desire to be the light for this kind of to kids in these situations.
Yeah. Dr. Karen Purvis, who was really a pioneer in working with kids from trauma, is the one who said this. And we say it over and over in our ministry, because often, a kid, like this says, the only way they have to communicate with us is through their behavior. And it might be the kid that is being disruptive and, causing some issues. It also could be the kid that comes in and is just really, really quiet. And so what we always say is we want to be curious. When a kid is acting up, for one, we don't want to take it personal. It's so easy to take it personally. We work so hard on creating this amazing experience for kids on a weekend. It's very easy to get agitated and say, but I did this amazing thing and now people can't do it. Instead, if we realize, one, it's not about us, and that behavior is telling us something. I've had people say to me, but they won't tell me. They're not talking to me. And I go, oh, they're talking to you. They're just not using their words. And so when we start getting curious, we can really help get to the root of it. And what we want, all of our desires in kids ministry is to make our places a safe place for every single kid. And by being curious, we can do that.
Well, and that's great. Let me tell you a story on my stepdaughter, Ariana. She's from Haiti, and she came over to America. It'll be 2 years next month. And she came to America with no English, and she'd been through some rough situations in life. I don't need to air that out, but she'd been through some rough life where she came from. And she had a hearing problem. She could not hear. She did not have a voice. Literally, she did not know how to speak English. And if you spoke back to her in English, she could not hear you because she had a hearing problem. So she went to school. And Kim, you can probably imagine what happened. She's a second grader in an American classroom, and she acts out. She bites, she hits, she pushes, and she's doing all of these like toddler behaviors because she doesn't know how to get her needs met. She doesn't know how to stick up for herself. Her feelings are hurt. She's confused. It's just this mess. And we took her to church. Bless her heart. We love our church. Shout out to Sellersburg United Methodist Church. And our children's pastor, Brenda, was so patient. Everybody at this church was so patient with Ariana. And she was like a wild animal. She just was out of control. And she didn't have her voice. And let's fast forward 2 years. She got her hearing aids. She got English. She figured out the system. She had some time to heal and let that natural process move forward. She's safe. She's in the same bed every night for 2 years, first time in her life. And she has all her needs met. And she is now a totally different kid. And we go back now and people are like, Ariana is so great. She's so cool. She's always smiling. And I said, yeah, she went through some rough stuff. And that trauma, that disability, everything she had to go through, the patience and love that the teachers showed to her. Oh my gosh, these teachers were in a public school, and I love it because those people have invested in her, and she's like the favorite, although she was the most disruptive for a while, she's the favorite. And every time I talk to them, they're like, oh my gosh, Ariana's smile will light up the world. And that's a little success story, but I think that's the kind of kid you're talking about. And
that's a huge success story. And that should motivate us when we see a kid who's displaying challenging behaviors to understand that there's before the kid has a story. It started before they walked into our room, and we typically don't know it because it's not, it'd be nice if it said on their forehead, but It doesn't. And so I think that should inspire others to be curious, to be patient, to give kids the benefit of the doubt, to maybe give them a little extra space, because look at the difference Brenda made
Mm-hmm.
in the life of Ariana by doing
Absolutely.
that. And a quote that I love, I always quote other people, but Josh Shipp says, every kid is one carrying adult away from being a success story. And that's what Brenda was to Ariana. And we all have the opportunity to do that with kids. And as we talk about trauma, every single kid I've had some people from churches say, well, I don't really have kids from trauma. Like recently they'll tell me that. I go, oh, actually, like every single one of your kids now has experienced trauma, because trauma is anything that's confusing and the brain can't figure out. I mean, a lot of times we think of trauma, we think of abuse and neglect, but also COVID. That's been a trauma to kids.
Absolutely.
Because all of a sudden now they go to the grocery and there's people, you and I were just talking about this, Tony, people with masks on. They can't read their faces. They don't know who people are. All of a sudden they can't be with their friends anymore. They have experienced trauma. And so as we open back up, we should expect we're going to see some behaviors out of children that maybe we hadn't seen before. And it might be, you talked about Ariana being challenging in a disruptive kind of way. We might have a kid who's usually been energetic and really friendly come in and be really quiet and even kind of sullen. I mean, we're going to see all kinds of different behaviors. And so, I mean, I think one of the best things we can do is educate our volunteers on just be ready for anything and don't assume anything. And if a kid acts in a way that's hurtful to you, don't take it personally, because it's not about you. It's about what's going on with them.
Amen. And that's a big part of what I wanted to talk about today. And, we're doing a poll on the website every week just to kind of get the pulse of when churches are opening. And so this week, it looks like we're up to about 25% right now that's going to have something in person. So that's still really, really low.
Wow.
And I think that number is going to shoot up. Last week, it was close to 20% had something in person. Now it's moving up. It's going to be, I think by this weekend, it'll probably get up because the poll changes as the weekend hits. But, and that's up from like 5% who had something in person a couple weeks ago. So everybody's coming out of their shell. Everybody knows this from watching the news. Everything's opening back up. Maybe not schools yet, but that's going to happen in the fall. Everybody thinks it's going to happen. So kids are coming out of this experience. We've had a national trauma. Adults, kids, everybody in some way has been impacted.
Right.
And every state was on a lockdown at one point in America. And it's worse in some other places too. I have friends all around the world in ministry. And you said that we do have a lot of readers from other country on ministry to children. And man, it's you think we had it bad here. It's much worse in other countries because they don't have some of the resources. They don't have some of the okay. So our family in Haiti, I mean, for a while it was like if you went outside, the police had permission to give you the baton, just send you back in the house. It's like, okay, unless you had money to pay, and then it was different. So just different countries have different challenges. And now we're talking about kids and trauma coming out of this. And shout out to Brenda again. Brenda, you're gonna have to watch this one because I've talked about you twice. She said to me last week, we had one of these great conversations, and she said, Tony, what is it gonna be like for all these kids coming out of this? What kind of trauma are they gonna have from this experience? Are they gonna come back and be 10 times as wild when they come out because they've not been in school, they've been locked in their houses? Some of their houses are really healthy, wonderful places. Some of their houses have family dysfunction. Some of their houses have a lot of dysfunction. They haven't seen their grandparents. They haven't seen their friends. So that's really like just first off, talking to you today, I wanted to say, okay, let's make this an issue because it needs to be an issue. We need to be aware of this.
Because it is an issue.
It is an issue. And if we're not expecting it, if we go back into church thinking, oh, everybody's going to be happy and friendly and perfect, it's going to be creepy. We're all going to have masks on. The kids are going to be looking up here and here. And they're like, can I hug this person? Can I not hug this person? Can I, it's going to be traumatic. Even coming out of it, it's going to be a whole nother level. So the first thing I wanted to have this conversation is just to say, okay, everybody, this is real. All right, then let's accept it. Let's have a plan. So Kim, I think you're super smart. There's no secret there. So there's a couple questions here, and especially for churches, how can we as churches, well, we can recognize it first. And I think there's a lot of great
Right.
things out there, but what are some things we can do in terms of our ministry systems or even our attitudes in ministry to address this new trauma that kids are facing?
Um, I think first of all, while we're not meeting, stay in touch with the kids.
Yeah.
Um, we're sending literally thousands and thousands of cards, personal cards to kids that then they carry around with them. And so that keeps them somewhat connected to us. We've got volunteers who are sending videos to kids. The more connected we can stay to the kids and their families, that will help ease the transition when they come back. I think working with our volunteers to assure things that we've already talked about, recognizing that kids are deeply affected by this. You know, when Katrina came through New Orleans, there's been all kinds of studies of the long-term impact on those kids. And this is going to have a long-term impact on them too. And unfortunately, there's no one thing where you can just say, okay, this is how the children are going to behave.
Right.
It's going to be all over the place. And actually, there are some kids, parents that I've talked to, who kids have experienced deep trauma, who've had all kinds of trouble in school. They are thriving right now. They're loving this because they're home. They're in this very safe environment. They're getting all kinds of extra attention from mom and dad. They don't have the pressure of trying to fit in at school. So for some kids, this has actually been a really good thing. So going back out into the wild, they might not be too excited about it. Not everybody's excited about things opening up, and not every kid is going to be excited about opening up. Of course, it's going to be very difficult for them to articulate it to us. But I just think making sure that volunteers know the kids are going to behave in different ways, remembering that their behavior is a way that they're trying to talk to us. So be empathetic. Karen Purvis, who I quoted earlier, she's got great A Power to Connect, and she has since passed away, but A Power to Connect has a lot of her resources on it. And you can see different videos on, responding to kids. I think one of the tools we use a lot is giving kids a choice on things. And kids, they're coming out of this and they've had no control over anything. They can't decide what friends they can play with. They might not have as many food choices as they had before because families are strapped financially.
Absolutely.
Families might not be able to get to the store. I mean, all the choices have gone out the window. So I would say one thing that we can train our volunteers on when they come back is how to offer choices to kids. Instead of constantly telling them do this, do this, do this, give them a choice. When they come in the room, do you want to play with trucks or do you want to sit over here and color? When they go to large group, do they all really have to sit? I don't think so in large groups. If you've got a kid who's super antsy, do you want to sit here by me or do you want to stand in the back of large group and sway while you listen? So maybe even teams thinking about some choices they could give kids right off the bat as they come in the room will help kids then feel like they're more in control of the situation. And for adults who are control freaks, I'm a recovering control freak. It's okay because you're still in control because you're only giving them choices that you're okay with.
Yeah. And let me just recap some of the things you just said, because I think this is great advice. And that's the way I listen, as I have to process in this. But, first off, and you just said this, understand behavior is communication. That's how kids communicate, with their behavior, right?
Right.
Is that correct? Be aware that it's going to be different for every kid. There is, as unique as a child is in that same uniqueness as they're going to process and express, be relational, right? Make sure those relationships are maintained during lock-in. I love what our church has been doing. I think some ways our church now is more relational than we have been before. And then when they come back, give people choices, give the kids choices, give your teachers choices, I think choices is a powerful tool.
Yes, it is.
In everything. So that's awesome. So
I would say too, another tool we use a lot is the power of yes.
Yeah.
During quarantine, so many kids have been told no over and over again. And so look for ways to respond in the affirmative. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you give the kid everything they want. But if they're saying, I want to draw a picture, but it's time to get a large group, you can say, oh, you can draw a picture. I'm going to put your paper and your crayons or markers right here. And when we get back from large group and go to small group, you can do that. And that helps continue to build a relationship with a kid. Because when we're saying, no, you can't color now, it's large group. Well, that's gonna build a wall, not a bridge.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let me jump back over. Let's do a screen share, and I'm going to jump back over and look at the Facebook page. So if you guys are on here live, there's a handful of you guys watching right now, and I know a lot more is going to watch it later. That's the way these things work. But if you have a question, specific question for Kim, let's hear it. Let's put her on the spot, right? Ask her about VBS. Everybody's talking about VBS, but let's see these. Emmanuel, thank you. Nairobi, Kenya, appreciate you checking in. Appreciate the comment. Johnny Paul, how are you doing? I don't remember you, but I should. If you say, do you remember me? It probably means I should, but thank you for watching today. And Paige and Glenn, thank you guys too. And yeah, we're here to answer your questions. And my whole attempt to do these Facebook Lives is just, let's have some face-to-face conversations. Let's get into these issues. We're in children's ministry. We're all smarter together. I don't know if anyone else has realized that yet, but when you put more smart people together, you can do better things. So that's one of the things I really appreciate. Now, the Children's Pastors Conference just a couple weeks ago, they did a big webinar on VBS. And Kim, I did not see you on that webinar. And that's because you're in one of those bigger churches that don't typically do a VBS, right? You try to make Sunday morning the big thing. So
that's right.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to stop.
We try to make every weekend be a weekend that's fun, that has surprises, and that kids can invite their friends, and that we talk about Jesus.
Amen.
And I know that's what we do in VBS in a 5-day period. And so we try to do that every week. So we pour our resources in doing that into a weekly basis rather than concentrated in a week. And also what we do is we encourage people, if they're saying, I miss Vacation Bible School, or then we have resources online that they can create, like a backyard Bible club, or, where they do it 5 days in a row for their neighborhood, or they might do it once a week. We also have people that will go to areas that maybe don't have the resources to put on a VBS, and they'll put on a VBS in that area.
Well, absolutely. And let me jump back to a screen share because I forgot to brag on this, Kim. Uh-oh. Something's talking. I don't know if you guys can hear this. It's a video. Okay, we're on Crossroads Kids Club. This is the fruit of your church, and it's completely free. It's online. It's been there for years. And this is how we first connected, is because I found these videos. This is way back when I was teaching children's church every week. And I said, you know what? I'm doing this lesson every week, but I'm going to do my best to tell the story. We're going to do some activities. And then I'm going to show them the God's Story Kids Club video from YouTube at the same time. And that became just super popular in my children's church. And then I started sharing it online because I think no matter what you're doing, if you're teaching a Bible lesson, and I think human to human teaching is super important, but then to have a backup 3-minute animated video clip that tells the same Bible story again, I mean, to me, that's a win. And so what you were just saying, like about the resources, you guys have Kids Club at home. You're doing these every week. You're kind of putting up a whole program for things. Or you can just drop down and get a story you need, different age groups. You've got all these playlists now. I'm so glad you guys were on YouTube, because for a while you weren't on YouTube. You were just on Vimeo.
Right.
And now that you're on YouTube, you just have a huge reach and a huge ministry. And I appreciate that, because I know there's this whole thing in children's ministry. I mean, there's curriculum companies and there's publishers, and they do amazing stuff. And I believe that that's worth paying for. I think that's a beautiful thing. And then there's free websites like me, and I just give it away. I say, I don't,
right.
if you want to help me, then just tell your friend about the website. Because we have some of those curriculum companies that sponsor the website. So it's all friendly. And now you're over here in church world, and you guys have, your church is doing amazing stuff. And by the way, I never told you that was so great. The Easter experience. I really enjoyed that.
Oh,
You guys,
good.
and is this on the front? It's here somewhere, right?
Yeah, we took a team to Israel, and it would be, let's see, where would it be?
Here it is. Locations of Easter experience.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
Yeah.
So we took a team to Israel, and we actually filmed in the places where the Easter story took place.
Yep.
And we got back right before everything shut down. So we really felt like the Lord, we had the Lord's favor in that. But yeah, we love to share our stuff. And we also have a website. You can go to crossroads.net/kidsclub, and it will direct you to our web page that has all kinds of different, it has lesson posters. And so if you scroll down a little bit, and then on the far right, the Kids Club website, so that you can get to our Facebook or YouTube, that has just all kinds of things. We also have videos, to train leaders. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a tremendous free resource, and there's no paywall, there's no sign up. They don't need your email address to send you 1,000 different emails. This is just the fruit of their church's ministry, which is a local church in Greater Cincinnati. I know you guys are multi-campus, but so this is a local church sharing what they've done for the kingdom of God, and I think that's beautiful. I think that's something that's happening now. And I know churches are using this, families are using this because they don't have an option, right? We
love it. We love that people are using it. And I wanted to go back to, on Facebook, somebody asked, who besides Karen Purvis should we be watching or reading to help kiddos? Back to Back is a great organization. And if you search them, and after this is over, after I get finished with my other meetings today, they have a YouTube page that has all kinds of just quick 2-minute videos on trauma that would be great volunteer training, because I don't know about you all, but it's very difficult for volunteers to commit to, well, right now they can't come into the building, but even to watch long videos, we just don't have the attention span. And Back to Back has great short videos where you could just send one out. Let's see who asked that question. Brooke, you could just pick one of those videos and send it out to your volunteers with maybe a story about it or how you see that playing out in.
Am I on the right thing here, Kim?
Yep.
Back to Back?
Just look under. Yeah. Just hit videos.
Okay.
Good job, Tony.
See, I know how to use a computer.
Yeah. And you can see. Yeah. There's trauma care tips. There's a couple videos that say trauma care tips, and those would be great videos to show with show to your volunteers.
Yeah. Now this is Becky.
This is Beth Guckenberger.
Beth, yeah, she was at the Children's Pastors Conference. Yeah, so I've heard a lot about this, but I haven't actually been to the YouTube page. So thank you, Kim.
Yeah, they have great resources.
I'm going to subscribe and get notifications. There we go.
Yeah. And as we're talking about volunteers, I just want to say one thing about volunteers too. As we come back, I know I have seen, as you guys all have seen on some of the children's ministry sites, Facebook pages, where people are kind of talking about, why are you afraid? God's in control. And I just want us to be easy on the volunteer. I don't know, easy is not the right word. I want us to care for our volunteers well.
Right.
And some of their fears may be legitimate. We don't know that. And there may be some volunteers who aren't ready to come back. And so I would just encourage people to have the higher priority be caring for your volunteers than getting them all back in the building. And I believe if we do that, if we put care as the top priority, we're going to have a stronger team anyway. Yeah.
And that is the big question mark. And people who are, it's a little different in a smaller church versus a bigger church, but I don't think there's any ministry in any church that needs more volunteers than the children's ministry, because that's what you do. And some of the best people in children's ministry, I know people who used to be in human resources and then got called to ministry, and they know how to do this. They know how to recruit, they know how to screen, they know how to train. I mean, they have that system. So those people are going into bigger churches and doing a tremendous job. Now, I was always in a smaller church, so I had a volunteer book. Maybe I had 50 people in my church who were my children's ministry team, and then out from there I had more people who were involved in different ways. But those were my, every month they were on a schedule of something. And so
Right.
looking back at that, and that's past tense because I'm not at that church anymore. But if I had that same volunteer book, I would have gone through and said, oh, this person is over 60. This person has health issues. This person, I think out of my core Sunday school teachers, maybe a few were moms and dads, but most of them were grandparents, retired folks. Retired school teachers were always my best Sunday school teachers. And these are exactly the kind of people right now that would be saying to me, I don't know if I can come back. How can I come back and teach if I'm in a high risk group? I may not even come to church until we get a vaccine. That's probably what people are hearing. And you have a pretty large volunteer team there, I know as well, Kim, because you guys have a huge, complex organization to serve all these kids every week. But I appreciate that if you put the volunteers' well-being and care for them first, and say, okay, programs and people, that's
Right.
never a debate. People matter first.
Right.
So.
And I would say one of the things is I believe one of the first steps in preparing to come back is to personally contact every single volunteer in your kids ministry roster. And that doesn't mean that you as the staff person or lead volunteer has to do it. Get other trusted volunteer leaders to help you make those calls, and call the volunteers, and just rather than make the call be all about we're opening up, are you going to be there? Make the call be about, hey, how are you doing? And you've probably heard our doors are opening in a couple weeks. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about coming back to serving the kids ministry?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would go a long way. And like you said, Tony, there are going to be people that just simply, it might not be the best thing for them to come back. And what we don't want to do is guilt and shame them. We want them to feel cared for. And consequently, we will have them forever if we do that, as opposed to try to push them.
Yeah, and I think this is a challenge in so many ways. But I think if the church just gets back to what we do, love our neighbors, right? Share the gospel. I mean, that's what this is. I really appreciate the way my pastors led through this. And, I think the kind of the tagline on everything he was doing at first is like, okay, we just have to be the church. We just have to be the church wherever we're at. It's not just, the church is not, we have a wonderful building. It's had continuous worship services for 120 years in our sanctuary. I mean, it's like a legacy type of church, and it's a beautiful testament to this congregation that they've done that. But the reality now is that building is not relevant for here a little while. It's been 2 months already, and we probably going to have 3 more weeks before we're even back in the building. And so being the church means loving people, caring for people. And I thought I had this random idea. I'm going to throw it out here because that's what I do. I throw out random ideas. But when you were talking about trauma in kids ministry, and I was thinking of this kind of from the senior pastor level, like what can we do as a church to support these family systems? And I was thinking, the training volunteers, being sensitive. But, the bigger picture, the best thing we can do to help hurting families is share the gospel, right? Have lives transformed through the ministry of our church. And I think that's what I've always respected about Crossroads is you guys are a church that have this vibe that we're not here for the normal churchy people. We're here to reach people who don't really go to church. We're here to reach people who need Jesus, but have never found a place in church world. So I think just the gospel ministry of the whole church has an effect on parents, has an effect on kids, has an effect on family systems. So and I know
the thing is, though, in order for us to have the opportunity to share the gospel with people, we have to be a safe place for all people. And if we have kids that have challenging behavior, that
Mm-hmm.
we're giving them 3 strikes, you're out, and we're calling the parents and saying, you got to take them to church. We can't
Yes.
handle them. We then are going to lose the opportunity to talk about Jesus to them. And if they don't know Jesus, we are the closest representation of Jesus that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that probably doesn't feel very inviting
Yeah.
if we're telling them that we don't want their kid in our ministry. And I know it's hard, man. I have been with kids that are just incredibly challenging. And that's where we work to train our volunteers that, hey, this challenging behavior is telling us something. Let's try to dig beneath. We have an inclusion team, which
Mm-hmm.
is formerly known as our special needs team.
Yep.
And so the inclusion team enables kids to have one-on-one buddies. They might not have a identified special need, but they just need a little extra support.
Yeah.
And what I found on the inclusion team, it's much easier to recruit somebody if you just say, hey, Susie needs somebody with her the whole time. Could you start working in the kids ministry and just be with Susie and you'll be in the room? That's way easier to recruit for than saying,
Absolutely.
can you come in this room and you're going to have 30 third graders and then you're going to have a 6th grade helper and it's going to be awesome. That's a lot. That's a lot harder.
Yeah. So to staff your ministry, and it is, you got to bring them into the funnel. You've got to get them into the ministry somehow. And that's a great, easy way. Somebody who has a heart to serve.
Right.
They don't feel equipped yet to be like a lead teacher or even a small group leader, but they can be a buddy, and that's powerful. And
right.
And I'll shout out to Dr. Key Ministry. I can never say his name right.
It's Steve. I don't know how to pronounce it.
The show.
Key Ministry, Dr. Steve.
Yeah.
He's great. Somebody asked a question about teens.
Yeah.
Do you have something for teens? The things that we talked about, Karen Purvis, Empowered to Connect, or the resources from Back to Back are also great for teens. There's also there's a couple books, The Connected Child, which is by Karen Purvis. It's a great read. I recommend that. Also, Dr. Bruce Perry, he teamed up with Oprah probably a year ago. He has a book called Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. That is a great book. It's a hard book to read, and that it's just hard stuff happening to kids, but it really communicates how trauma affects kids and what we can do about it. That's an older book. And yeah, he's got all kinds of great stuff, Bruce Perry, on this website. Another one is The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke Harris. And I'll get in here and put these in the comments. This is a more recent book where she talks about some of the things that she has done with, a lot of them are adolescents. So to your question about teens, and really what it all comes down to, whether it's kids or teens or adults, I think it's this concept of understanding that their behavior is communicating to us. Yeah, love that book. Understand their behavior is communicating to us. And another quote from Karen Purvis is connect before you correct. Yep. So when we live by that, so instead of, when we see a kid doing something we don't want to do, instead of immediately going in and disciplining them, instead what we do is connect. And it could be really quick. Like Tony, if you, if you said something that was hurtful to me, rather than just say, Tony, you don't talk to me like that. I'd say, Tony, it seems like you're really frustrated with me right now. And then I can go into, and what you said really hurt my feelings. So the connect before you correct that has changed the way I interact, not with just kids, but with adults too.
Absolutely. And I'll tell a story, because in my In my former life, meaning two months ago before the lockdown, I am a part-time school bus driver for the public schools, and that's something I love to do. People make fun of me. They're like, "You have a master's degree. Why are you driving a school bus?" And I said, "Because I like it. It's fun." And I have on my school bus, I have all variety of different kids, and there's confidentiality stuff. I'm not going to name anybody in case my director's watching, but the there's one boy who is, I would say, above and beyond my 10 times wild kid, and every day he would get on. He was one of my first riders every morning, and it became a routine for me. He would get on the bus, and that was like, "Hey man, how you doing? How was your weekend? What have you been up to? What games are you playing?" Because he had about 2 or 3 minutes, he would sit behind me and talk before the other kids got on, and then he would bother them. So we built this friendship to the point where I was like, he became one of my favorite kids, and he ended up missing some school, and I was just like, man, everybody on the bus missed him, because although he was the most disruptive in a lot of ways, and he had issues, everybody has issues, but he was also a great guy. He was a great guy hiding behind all these problem behaviors, and the relationship, like you just said, knowing that, connecting with him, it gave me a chance. When he had a good day at the end, I'd say, "Man, getting off the bus," I said, "You know what? You had a great day. I am proud of you. You have come so far, and you can control yourself when you need to. Everybody likes you. You share your potato chips, although you're not supposed to
Yeah.
have food out. I appreciate that you share them." And that became kind of a favorite thing. And that was also one of my things. And I probably got this from children's ministry. At the dismissal, I always have a positive dismissal. I don't have no matter how disruptive a kid was, and even on the school bus, you do have to come down and you have to say, "Look, sit down. That's it. You're done.
Yeah, it's a safety issue.
Your mouth is closed. I cannot have you say these words. We cannot talk like that on the bus. Over. Game over." But then when they come up and I have to open the door, and they come up by me, and I say, before I open the door, I said, "You know what? That was kind of rough today, but I want you to know I like you. You're one of my favorite kids on this bus, and you're going to have a great day tomorrow." And I always try to leave with something positive, so that, like, no matter how hard I had to come down for safety, when they leave, there's this positive moment that they know that's not broken our relationship.
Right.
And maybe some of that goes over their head, but I need it, because I don't want broken relationships walking off my bus. I want to be, yeah.
Right. And I think what that does, when we speak those things, when we speak those words over the kids, it changes our mindset about that particular kid. When a kid is aggravating to us, and sometimes they're aggravating to us and it's our stuff. Maybe what they're doing is even particularly aggravating. But when they're aggravating for us, if we start looking for positive, because if we truly believe that everybody is created in God's image, which I believe that, then there's good to be found in every kid and adult. And so speaking that over them, and what that does too, is it helps change their self-image about themselves, because the kids who are challenging, who have challenging behavior, they typically don't get a lot of great stuff said about them. And they're typically the ones when the parents come to pick them up that, I had a kid that I had been warned, that this was a really challenging kid. And we tried a whole bunch of different strategies with them, the options and a choice and things like that. And he had a great day. And so at the end, when his mom came to pick him up, I said, "Hey, are you Tom's mom?" And her first response was this, which I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
Because that's what she was used to. When somebody said, "Are you his mom?" She was used to them saying something negative. I was able to say something positive to her in his presence, and he was beaming. He was so proud. And those words we speak over them can change their beliefs about themselves. Because typically the kids who are challenging, their belief system about themselves is usually pretty negative.
Well, and that's what the oldest thing you hear about child psychology. You are a mirror. Like, when you're interacting with a child, what they see in your reaction to them, that's a mirror for how they're going to gauge that's how they know who they are, is the way you react to them. So if I'm smiling and I'm kind to this children, okay, maybe I'm good. But if I'm always mad, they think, well, maybe I'm a bad kid. I don't,
That's right.
And
you know what? That's a great thing to tell our leaders as we're getting ready to open back up. think about this, the way and it's not always just your words either. It's your face.
Yeah.
What is your face communicating to them? Because your face, just like you said, Tony, it's a mirror. That's then how they're going to see themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so we should look joy-filled to see every kid come in our room. And
Absolutely.
even the energetic ones, okay, reframe that behavior. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, you are off the walls, we could say, wow, I am so glad that you are so excited to be here.
That's right. That's
Because,
right.
I mean, that's great that they're energetic. And then we have to help channel that. But I think really look for ways to shout out the positive is going to be really important as people open up, because like we said at the top, we're going to see kids are just going to behave different. They've been through, this has been hard for all of us.
Absolutely. And I think just to carry up one more thing about how we interact with the kid, that comes with the parents too. And you said a little bit earlier, when parents need to know that our church accepts them, loves them, wants their child here. And even if we don't have the 3 strike and you're out of my children's church rule, and I know people have that, and I know there's safety issues and you got to have policies. I've never been a big fan of that, because I think, hey, my job is to make sure you never get to strike 2, right? If in my power, but that's not always the situation. But when that parent comes to get the kid, you can eye roll to other volunteers. You can be happy a certain kid doesn't come. We have those moments where, oh, I'm so glad they're not here today, right? You communicate that to other volunteers. That gives that volunteer permission to communicate badly. You create this chain reaction in the way you react to that child, that I don't know if the parents directly see it or not, but wouldn't that break your heart that my kid makes you happiest when they don't come?
Yes.
That would.
And our body language communicates a lot to parents. And we actually have a thing that we'll do in our ministry where we do this. And that's just a check, like, what's your face communicating? Because it should be communicating that we are glad to have all the kids and families there, that we're, pleased with the kids. Even if their behavior isn't something we're pleased with, we're happy that the kid's there. And I just want to say too, about talking to parents, one of the because as we go back and as kids are struggling, we're going to need to talk to more parents. And we always tell our volunteers, when they talk to a parent, number one, you need to do it privately. So when they come, you pull them aside, and that's out of the earshot of the kid too. You do not want to have that conversation with the kid. And if you can't remove the kid, then you need to have it on the phone later. But you get it out of earshot. You tell the parent how happy you are to have their kid in the church. Tell them something positive about it. And then state just the facts. You're like, hey, today Tom couldn't stay in his chair during small group and was using his hands to touch a lot of the other kids. Do you ever see that behavior? Like, is there anything that you do at home or in a school setting? So just the facts, because we've had situations, where somebody will say, a volunteer might say, oh my gosh, my kid's on Ritalin and you maybe should try it for your kid too. We don't want to do that. Even if we are a professional, we don't want to do that. Yeah. So you state the facts, ask for their partnership, and then you end by saying, again, I'm so glad your kid was here. Use their name, of course. I'm so glad that Tony was here.
Yay.
Can't wait to see him. Yeah, can't wait to see him next week. Because when that parent, that needs to be the last thing, because that parent is going to think that we don't want them there anymore. Yeah. And then we try to follow up with them during the week too, because often when you leave, if you've been told something challenging about your kid, I think Satan starts to whisper all these things, and
absolutely,
they don't really want him there. You should never take him back there. Church, that's just not a place for you. If we just call him and just say, hey, I just want to follow up. Do you have any questions based on our conversation? Hey, anything you thought of that could make our environment a better environment for sweet little Tony?
Yeah. And that's so powerful, because when you take that next step, because everybody knows the positive before you correct, you have to be positive, then you correct, and you be positive again. That should be just, if you've been in any kind of business or ministry setting, that should be ingrained into just the way you work with people. That's how you get, communication done. But then that next step that you just said, Kim, that's so powerful because I would, I had situations with Ariana and at school and at church, and Ariana did this, Ariana did that, and I said, yeah, that she did that. I believe you. So what? That's what she does. That was my approach because, I'm pretty thick-skinned about it, and I knew she's in a process, but to call later that week and say, hey, I just want you to know that we really love Ariana and we want her to come back. And if you've thought of any ideas that I can do, to make it better. So I appreciate that, Kim. I think we need to wrap this up because I'm getting ready for my second lunch, which is what we do here in quarantine land. We have lunch,
multiple meals.
Multiple meals. And hey, I appreciate you doing this. And if you guys are watching this on live, or if you're watching it later on YouTube or on Facebook, whatever, just let us know if these are helpful to you. Let us know. Let Kim know you appreciate her, and we'll do some more. And I just always love talking to you because, even in planning this, I said, let's not plan too much. Let's just talk, because I feel like when you talk, you're sharing wisdom, just informally. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's going to help a lot of people. So thanks so much.
Well, thanks for the invite. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And people write comments, because Tony and I will get on there. We'll
Absolutely.
Respond,
Absolutely.
Yep.
We'll respond, even if it's just a thumbs up or the hug, the new hug emoji. I love all those.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Kim, thank you so much. And just God bless you and your
Tony.
ministry. And I'm thankful for Crossroads, and I'm thankful for what you do for the broader children's ministry community. And I appreciate the time, and thanks for being my friend.
Yep. Thank you, Tony. Thanks for everything that Ministry to Children does and what you do personally for us and for the community.
Amen. All right.